Hi everyone, welcome back. I just wanted to share something with you. Express Design. What is Express Design? Well, it's a new feature within PowerApps that was announced during Microsoft Build in May 2022, this year, obviously. And it got me so excited that you can be able to use these different features within PowerApps because PowerApps was already awesome when I started out with it. So I wanted to share that with you and obviously to share all of the different pros that come with these new features. Obviously, those new features are still in preview because obviously these were announced during build this year. But I just wanted to play around with it and also share my knowledge around those two new features. Well, it's not really two new features. I think I'm spoiling the session already, but welcome. And I hope you actually enjoy the session and you are able to take advantage of Express Design. We'll get into what Express Design is in a short minute. Okay, let's get into it. What exactly is new with Express Design? So like I said earlier on, Express Design was announced during Microsoft Build in May 2022, and it has different capabilities that people can start leveraging on. One key aspect is that most people or most students, I know that a lot of people will always be students until we grow old. You never stop learning. So in this case, with Express Design, you are able to actually be part of a hackathon, for an example, and you are able to quickly do a wireframe of your application, and then you can obviously transform it into an actual working app. Right. Enough just sitting and talking about what are the different possibilities that you can have with Express Design. Let's look at what exactly is Express Design. So Express Design is actually a new quick way for you to be able to get started with Power Apps. You are able to instantly transform your visual designs into an actual working app. Be it you are using a picture that you either took a picture of your drawing for your application's design, or you are using a picture of a form that you got online, or in this case, you're using a picture of a drawing that was on a whiteboard at work or at school. Also, in this case, within Express Design, you are also able to actually use Figma wireframes where you are able to build your application from those wireframes using PowerApps. Right. So there's two options that are available within Express Design, which are the image to an app feature and the Figma to an app feature. Let's try to dive a little bit deeper into those two things. First up, we have how you can be able to build an app with the image to an app feature. So how this actually works within Express Design within Power Apps is that you, like I mentioned earlier on, you are able to create an application from a visual design and connect it to data through a few simple steps within Power Apps or within this guided interface that's presented to you. So be it a form that you have within your PDF documents, or be it a form that you drew on a piece of paper and you took a picture of it, then you upload it on Power Apps, and then you are able to actually produce an application from it. With this feature, the only thing that you can do is to have just a simple form. So for an example, what you can see on the screen, just a simple form, upload the picture of that form, and then it will quickly transform it into an actual working app. And this only creates one screen, but we'll see that later onto this session. Then next up, which correlates to the first feature within Express Design, is building an app using Figma. So you can use Figma to an app feature where you have the ability to create apps from a Figma design file, and then you can directly bridge the gap between the design and the development by accelerating the app and the UI development process. In this case, like I mentioned earlier on, you can have a Figma design wireframe where you design your wireframe on Figma, and then right after that, you want to transform the wireframe into an actual working app. So this normally works well in a place where you are either part of a hackathon or you are obviously rushing for specific prototyping that you want to present to either your clients or your customers, or your project at university. So you can use the Figma to an app feature. Enough theoretical stuff, right? Because we want to see this in action. So we're just going to dive a little bit deeper around those two different features, how I can actually show you how you guys can be able to take advantage of those features and how they actually work within PowerApps. So let's head over to PowerApps and actually see how we can be able to take advantage of these two features. Now that we are on the PowerApps homepage, then this is when we'll be able to see how to actually take advantage of those two features that we just mentioned. So again, like I mentioned earlier on, for you to be able to do this, you need to go on make.powerapps.com and then you go to the home screen. Obviously, you will see that there's two additional features that we've had before that were added to the ones that we've had before. So in this case, for an example, you would see that there's only the option of creating a blank app or creating from data where you are using Dataverse, SharePoint, Excel, and SQL Server. Now, like I mentioned earlier on, with these new features with Express Design is that you are able to create an app from an image or from a Figma file, right? So that must be very much exciting. So that's how you can be able to take advantage of these things. And you can see that these two features are easily accessible to you on the PowerApps homepage. Okay, let's get into it. We'll start off with how we can create an app from an image file. So you then click on image. So it will then take you to a pop-up dialog box where you are given all of the different options or different recommendations around which kind of pictures or forms can you upload onto PowerApps so that you can be able to build an application. Right. So one thing to note is that firstly, if you are using this feature, you need to note that only use one page forms, because if you have multiple page forms, it may not reflect properly on your app. Once PowerApps looks at your application or looks at your picture, you need to use obviously pictures within the size limit, which they shouldn't be no larger than 4 megabytes. And you can use hand-drawn images, like I mentioned earlier on, that are neat. They shouldn't be too clustered and things should not be messy onto that picture. So obviously what you can see on the screen is that these are the different options, or these are the recommended comparisons between a very neat hand-drawn picture and a not so neat one. So in this case, everything is clear. The app can pick it up, or PowerApps can pick it up properly. And then obviously when you see the picture next to it, is that obviously the writing around the different labels for that form is not so good. Okay. Also, another thing to note is that you should not use forms that have too many things going on in that form. It should be simple. It shouldn't be complicated, because you want your form to reflect correctly. So let's get into it. So you then click on next. This will open a user interface for you where you need to name your app, obviously, as tradition would say. So you would name your app and your application. For an example, you'd say image to app, image to app feature. And then right after that, obviously you are presented with two options. Do you want to upload your own picture in terms of the app that you want to build, or do you want to start with a sample image? In my case, I'm not going to upload my own because I do not have a picture of a form downloaded, or I did not take a picture of a form on my phone. So I will start with a sample image. You're then presented with different kinds of samples that are available to you for you to use on this feature. So for an example, there's the appointment scheduler, there's also the registration form, and so forth. There's different other ones. There's the tasks planner, and there's also a membership form as well. There's also an event survey. So those are the different options that are available to you on this specific feature, on how you can upload an image and then build an app out of it. Right. So you also need to take note of those different kinds of samples. If you're using a sample, is that if you click on appointment scheduler, for an example, you can see that the layout is portrait. It's fit for a phone. And then if you change, of course, you change it to task planner. Then now if you select a task planner, it will say tablet, the tablet format for that specific form is recommended. So you will see that Power Apps will recommend it for you. So I'm just going to go on ahead and just choose appointment scheduler. And then right after that, the format, I don't need to change it because I want to stick to the sample that is already there. Then I'll click on next. And then in this next step, so the first step is to provide an image of your application. Then the second step is for you to identify the components that are within your application. So for an example, your labels, your text boxes, your radio buttons, your date pickers. Right. So this actually uses something similar that we're familiar with within Power Apps. It's similar to how we are doing tagging for our object detector model on AI Builder within Power Apps or Power Automate. So it's using a similar concept. So that's where you can see that you've seen it before. In this case, right, when you click on, let's say, this text box, you are able to tag it and say this is a text input. So those are the different options that are available to you. Is it a text label? Is it a text input? Is it a button? Is it a checkbox, or is it a radio button? In a case where you are not able to tag your components or your controls on your screen or your application, like for an example, this one, it says it's a text input, but we know from the text label it wants it to be a date input. So we need to change it to be a date picker. So you click on that text input, either you delete the tag or you change it. So I think we can delete it so that we can tag it properly. And then we have to obviously drag that plus sign over our text box or our input control or component, and then obviously then choose the correct one. So we look for date picker, we choose date picker. Right. And then we have our tags tagged onto our components properly. So you can see the different tags that are here. If this is too confusing for you and how you can identify the different kinds of tags that you have, on the right hand side of the screen, you can see that the different colors represent different components. For an example, orange is for a text label and then green is for a text input. Right. After you've tagged obviously your application, or you've tagged your form or the components on your form, then you proceed to the third step. Now, the third step on this feature, which is step 3, is to actually add data for your application. What does that mean? So you upload your form onto Power Apps using this new feature. And when you upload your form, most of the time when we go through the normal process of creating an application, a Canvas app, a blank Canvas app, is that we create the interface, and then right after creating the interface, we need to connect it to a data source. Now, with this feature, you are able to bridge that gap where you are able to select the data source before, or create the data source before the app is actually created, or while the app is being created for you. Now, I do need to note this for you guys, is that let's say you are using your university's email account to access Power Apps, or you're using your company's email account to access Power Apps. You may not have the different rights to actually create a new data source or Dataverse table in this case, because this feature uses, for you to add data onto your application, you can create a new table in Dataverse that is specific to your application, meaning that it will have all of the different columns representing the different components that are on your form. So you can create a new table while in the process of creating this application. Power Apps will do that in the background. But most people, if they are using their company's email addresses or company's account on Power Apps, or university's account on Power Apps, you may not have the option to create a new table in Dataverse. So you do need to note that. If you want to follow along and do this properly, you are able to actually do this by having a developer account. I'm currently using my developer account to show you guys this cool new feature. and then you can be able to create a new table in Dataverse, because you need some form of admin rights to create tables within Dataverse. Right, so I'm going to click next. I'm going to leave that selected as create a new table in Dataverse. Then click next. Then in the background, obviously, again, within this same step, I need to tag all of the different columns that I need on my specific table and the different data types that come with that table. Right. Again, the tagging is still similar to what you saw with AI Builder and the previous step when we were tagging our components. Right. So if I click on first name, it's tagged as a column. So I need to assign a column to this specific control for my table to recognize that for this input, it will need to send the information to a first name column that is in Dataverse. So you can see that the display name of that column has already been created, which is first name. The data type is text, so forth for last name, email address, and obviously with radio buttons. So it'll depend upon you whether you want to save radio buttons as text or a different kind of data type. And also, obviously, even here, this will save them as text, which is a drop-down list. If I don't want it to be a drop-down list, I can change it here and change the data type from text to whatever I need it to be. So in this case, the only options that are available are text, email, phone, URL, number, decimal, and date. No other one that's available. So leave it as text. Whatever is selected on the form will then be saved as text on Dataverse. And then select date. Obviously, it's a date. It has to be a date time column. So if you click on that specific tag, you'll see that says the display name should be select date and the data type should be date. So basically the tagging has been done for you again, even for your table. That's how this awesome feature works like within PowerApps, right? So now we got that out of the way. We have our columns. We know which columns are going to be there. So we have select time, select date, name of preferred tutor, email address, last name, and first name, and we're okay with it. Then we can proceed to the next step. Then we review all of the columns that are available for our table in Dataverse. Obviously, first name, last name, email address, and all of those things. And then we can click on create. So in this case, it will create our application for us within PowerApps, and it will also create the table that we are working with, or the one that we chose here. Or we'll create a table for our specific Power App, our specific form that is closely related to the components and the controls that are within our app. So first name, last name, tutor, email will be the columns reflecting in our table that is created within Dataverse, and all kinds of things. So now that our application has been started, the application process or the creation process for our app has been started, PowerApps now, or the PowerApp Studio is actually opened up so that we can be able to change whatever we need to change or save it and publish our application the way it is. This takes us to PowerApp Studio, like I mentioned, and then obviously you can click on skip. And then if I just quickly zoom in, you'll see that our form has been created into an application within PowerApps. So we can preview the form or the app. You'll see that it's a text box for first name, text box for last name, like we tagged them. Radio buttons are there. It's a date picker. It'll select a time in a drop down list. Obviously, we can update the time here and all sorts of things. Right. You see how it actually works. So then you have to check, right, what I showed you in terms of it creates the table for you in the background. So if you go to the left hand side of the screen and we click on data, which is the cylinder icon, you will see that the Dataverse table has been created for us for this specific application. So it corresponds for this specific application form, which is, it named it as image to app feature. Obviously, it will be the name of your application that is added onto the table name for you. Right. One thing for you to note is that as much as this is created for you, the buttons that are within your form obviously do not come with the different functions that are available within PowerApps. So if you want functionality in terms of saving the data onto that Dataverse table, you would need to add the patch function, specify your data source, specify which records you want to update or create, point it to the right columns, and then obviously the data will be saved onto your Dataverse table. Again, with this feature, if you're not okay with how it looks, you can just work around it and customize it the way you want it to look like. And also, one thing to note is that when you use this feature, you can only be able to have one screen on your application because it's one form. Right. So we saw how image to an app feature works like. Now we actually need to look at how the Figma to app feature looks like. So we will look at it just right now and we'll see how you can actually go about to do that. Okay, to take advantage of the Figma to app feature, since we've already seen the image to app feature, we have to go back to the make.powerapps.com homepage and then obviously go to this and choose this specific option, which is Figma. In this case, again, normal process of creating an app within PowerApps, or anyway, you need to specify an app name and all of the different details that will be needed. Right. But now the question is, I can provide the app name, but how can I provide the link to Figma page or frame, nor the Figma personal access token? Don't worry. So in this case, we know that this new feature comes with Express Design, and within this new feature, you have the Figma UI kit. So you can click on the Figma UI kit. It will take you to Figma and it will show you. So we will go to that tab where it opened up our Figma UI kit. And obviously you will see the different details around this Figma UI kit in terms of what the kit is about. And obviously, what are the different things you can do with it? So there are things that you have to note when you're using the Figma UI kit within PowerApps, is that there are different kinds of controls that are allowed within PowerApps to be able to be translated onto your app. So for an example, galleries are a feature that is not currently available. So if you provide galleries on your Figma UI kit or your Figma wireframe or design, just know that it won't be reflected properly on your Power App when you use the feature. That is something that is very important to take note of. There are other specifications around which controls you can use with Figma or with this specific feature around Power Apps, right? So obviously you can look at it and you can look at the different information that's available to you. We can look at, for an example, you can say supported components, and then if you click on supported components, we can just zoom in quickly and then we can just have a look around and you'll see all of the different kinds of supported components within your app that you can use on your Figma UI kit. Right. I just wanted to get that out of the way so that you can understand. So how do we go about doing this and start creating a wireframe within Figma? So if you've never used Figma before, you'd have to sign up for a free account, either using your Google account or you create an account, just create an account within Figma. So I have my own account that's already created within Figma. I'll just log in quickly and use that. Again, create a free account so that you can be able to create your wireframes within Figma. Right. So I've logged in on Figma using my account that I already created before, and I'm presented with the different options on how to play around with Figma. Obviously, I can create a new design file or a new gem file or import a Figma file that I already have and then play around it. So I can click on new design file and play with it, obviously. So what I want us to do, because I have been playing around with the Figma UI kit, you can open the UI kit from this page, or in a case where you don't see the Figma UI kit opened to you, because that's what we're going to be looking at today and how it actually looks like to play around with Figma and PowerApps. So you can go back to PowerApps and then click on that link again. It will then open up Figma again. Now you're already logged in, obviously. Once you're logged in, it will show you obviously the same page that we saw earlier on. And then what I would need you to do is that you will need to click on get a copy. And then this will open another tab for you where it will show a wireframe of this document or a wireframe of this Figma UI kit. Why are we doing this? Why are we copying the wireframe of this UI kit? The thing that we're actually interested in within this wireframe is that the UI kit actually offers us a sample app. So I want us to use the sample app to take advantage of the Figma to app feature on PowerApps. So if you click on sample app, you will see that there's a wireframe that's already been created for you that you can start playing around with and look at. So it has 3 screens, which is start, sign up, and a thank you page. Obviously, if you are using or building apps, it doesn't make sense for your app to have all of the screens in one place to look at or to play around on. Again, like I mentioned earlier on, this specific feature is very useful when it comes to you being part of a hackathon where you guys are hacking, and obviously you have all of the different design ideas around your app and you design your application using Figma. But in the case now where you say you want to look different and be different within the hackathon, you can then transform your Figma UI kit, or not your Figma UI kit, but your Figma design onto a specific application. You can transform the wireframe onto an app using PowerApps. So again, just think about you having a wireframe like this or using this simple app. You have it. Great. What's the next step? So firstly, we go back to PowerApps. PowerApps wants an app name. So we're going to have the app name, give it a name, which will be Figma to app feature. So which will be similar to what we were doing with the image to app feature, so that we can understand which are the different applications we built. Then now it wants us to the link to the Figma page or frame. So that would be your design. That would be your wireframe. So you go back to that tab where the wireframe is open and the sample app is open. You right click on sample app on the left hand side of the screen. You click on copy link to page. You go back to PowerApps. You then paste in this link, right? And then you go back within PowerApps. It asks you for a Figma personal access token. How do we get that? So now you are in this case and you're in this page. You want to get that access token. How can you do that? Unfortunately, you can't if you are on the wireframe itself or the design is already open. So you'd have to be on the home page of your Figma site or Figma UI. So in this case, obviously I have 3 tabs open. This would be the home page where I'm just presented with the different options of how I can build different designs within Figma. And this is the one that I was using to look at the UI kit. So we can use either one. So I'm going to use the one with the UI kit. And then on the top right corner of the screen, I'll click on my profile or my initial, and then obviously click on settings, and then click on account. And then I'll have to scroll down, and then you'll see that you'd find personal access tokens. In this case, if you don't have any personal access token, in my case I already have them. So in this case, if you don't have it, how to create a new personal access token, you just type in within this text box any kind of text. So I can say video demo, and then in this case, and then you press enter. And then once you press enter, it'll generate your access token. Then you click on copy this token. You head back to PowerApps. You paste it in. You choose a layout. One thing to note, again, you choose a layout or a format for your app. One thing to note, on the UI kit or on the wireframe or on the design is that you can see all of the three screens, they are portrait, which means they're meant for a phone, not a tablet. If you design your wireframe to be for a tablet, then you would choose tablet. But in our case, because this wireframe is for a phone, we'll choose phone so that it can be translated properly onto your app. And then that's it. You click on create. And then obviously PowerApps will open PowerApp Studio, where you are able to manipulate the different things that are within your application, within that UI kit. So you took the design or the wireframe from Figma, then you're putting it onto an application. Now you want to play around on other stuff, like you want to add different kinds of things where you want to add, for an example, another button, or you want to add functionality, you want to add a data source. All of those different possibilities are presented to you. So it'll open up Power App Studio. You click on skip again. Voila, you can see first screen, which is the start screen. If you go back to the UI of the Figma wireframe, you can see start screen looks like this. You go back to Power Apps, you click on sign up, and then you can see that the sign up screen is translated properly. The thank you screen is also translated properly. One thing to note now, right? Like with the image to app feature, is that the functionality is not translated onto your application that you created from a Figma design or Figma wireframe. You would need to add your functionality as needed, the way you require it. And also, obviously, if you want to save data onto a data source, you would need to specify that function, which is a patch function. Talking about data sources, with this feature, unlike the image to an app feature, here you have to connect your application to an already existing data source, or you'll have to create it yourself on your own. So if you click on data on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that we need to add data because there are no data sources linked to this application. So that's the difference between the Figma, one of the differences between the Figma to an app feature and the image to an app feature. Another difference is that here, in this case, with the Figma to an app feature, you are able to create an application, or an application is created for you with three screens based off of the wireframe that you have. So the wireframe has three screens, it'll create three screens. If it had two screens, it'll create two screens. If it had one, it'll create one. If it had five, it'll create five. Whereas with the image to an app feature, what you will also note is that, like I said earlier on, you would need to specify a very simple basic form and upload the picture onto PowerApps, and it will create one screen of that form. So you need to know that there's only one screen generated from the image to an app feature, and then there's only one screen. There's only so many screens that are generated from the Figma to an app feature based off of your wireframe or based off of your design. Yeah. Then I guess that's it. That's how you can take advantage of the Figma to an app feature and also the image to an app feature. Well, that's it for today. That's what I had to offer. Express Design is a very cool feature, and you could see that it actually comes with two subsequent features within it, which is the image to app and also the Figma to an app feature. So I hope you guys actually enjoyed watching me go through the differences between the two features and also go through how you can actually try it out on your own. And I would like to actually know your thoughts around it, so you can actually leave comments down below around you trying it out and around what are the different learnings and the different handles that you actually had. Obviously, one thing to note about the image to an app feature is that if you want to create your own table within Dataverse, you would need to have specific admin rights within that environment. So if you're using your university account, there's a high chance that you wouldn't be able to create a new feature because you don't have specific rights or access to create a table. Same applies to people who are working and they are working for a company and they're using their company email, unless they have admin rights, which would be great. Again, please do leave your comments on the section down below and tell me what you think about this feature. And obviously tell me what's your favorite thing about it. And you can also mention me on Twitter, obviously, so that you can show me your progress and how you worked around it. Other than that, thank you for coming on to the session.